moral argument is, well, if we don't do anything, then we can't point fingers at other people for not doing anything. But I'd like to ask Guy what he thinks about the equity issue, what he thinks about the rich-poor issue, what he thinks about the response of countries like America or England or the EU or Japan or China related to African response. Guy?
I live like an American, actually, and many white South Africans do. We have the carbon footprint of a typical American. South Africa's per capita carbon footprint is not great, and our per GDP carbon footprint is one of the worst in the world. So even though we only produce 1.6% of the world's emissions, we're certainly not. We're not clean. This is not a simple mathematical problem. There's nothing simple about this problem. The science is complex, the politics is complex, the economics is complex, the ethics are complex. And there's much to be optimistic about. We have an international response well underway. It's been going for more than a decade. We have well-developed sets of rules. We have well-developed concepts around how this can be addressed. It's taking a long time, but that's because it's a very, very complicated problem, and it involves international competitiveness, which the officials who do the negotiations are there to defend, because that's why they were put in that position. And governments are elected to defend the good of their people. So don't see this as just a selfish thing. This is the way the world is structured, for better or for worse. That's what we have to deal with. So there's lots to be optimistic about. We have the building blocks of the solution developing all the time. Australia has a carbon trading scheme, not agreed yet, but the studies have been done, the building blocks are there. The US has a lot of bottom-up activity going on. The Environmental Protection Agency has declared CO2 a pollutant. There's been a fight back by the vested interests. The EPA has fought it off very effectively. CO2 is still a pollutant in the US. These are huge steps forward. Let's not be pessimistic that nothing is going on. So, but the thing is, we will talk about climate tipping points. Do we really need to go through an economic tipping point to get where we need to get to? I'm not sure. We need to go through an energy tipping point, that's for sure. But do we need to go through an economic tipping point and get to zero growth? We are currently going through an economic tipping point. And that is that we are starting to put a price on a gas that never had a price on its head before, the CO2. That's a massive tipping point economically to go through. Once we go through that tipping point, and we haven't gone through it yet, then we almost automatically, economics then takes what was an externality in the jargon and brings it into the system. Once that happens, you're in a whole new game plan, and then you have to almost become zero growth. You have to trend towards zero growth. So, and we're on the way to that. We're well on the way to that. The key thing is how to do that while being fair to people who still would like to improve their situation. And I don't think the world's in a parlor state completely. I mean, there are many, many people on this planet that are living better than any people that have ever lived in the history of humankind, as we well know. But we need more people to be living like that. And we need some people who are taking advantage of that to be living less well. And whether this bringing CO2 into the cost of CO2 into the whole equation is going to push us through the tipping point and get us to that point. We need an economist to kind of help us out, but it's certainly going to help a lot, I think.
Yeah, sometimes switched on economists have said to me, it's not about economic growth, it's really about development. And that's what we need to define. Economic growth is often measured by the amount of stuff that comes in your front door, goes out your front door, goods and services, and we're not always concerned about what's going out the back door.